And this gets the very few ready for the WNBA or the NBA. Now, some of these players in the NBA, they're getting paid tens of millions of dollars per year. And some of them have been getting coached for 9 out of 12 months of the year since the age of 7. And yet still, there's a person on the sideline yelling at them who to cover, when to press, when to fall back. And at the break of every gameplay, they bring every single person over, even the ones that aren't playing, to go over that next play. And they do all of this for a ball and a hoop. But at work, we feel like, no, I've been doing this job now. I've been doing this role for like the past 4 years. My team's has been together for the last 18 months. I finally got them where they want to be at. Plus, I pay them $15 per hour. They better know what to do. And we feel like we don't need to coach our team or we don't need to get coached. But yet still, we will have our kids getting coached for 3/4 of the year for nearly their entire life for a ball and a hoop.
This is Hospitality Huddles, brought to you by Auden Hospitality, the podcast that challenges hoteliers to think differently about F&B to create outlets that guests will love. Every episode, we will speak to the people who are embracing a different mindset to look for opportunities to stand out from the crowd, sharing tips and takeaways to help you get uncomfortable, change your outlook, and see F&B in a whole new way. So let's not wait any longer and dive straight into today's episode. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Hospitality Huddles, and I am really excited to have Jason E. Brooks on the show with us today, who is one of the greatest restaurant coaches I know and an author of a best-selling book, but he's going to be able to tell us a lot more about that than I will. Jason, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you on today.
Scott, thank you so much for inviting me virtually across the pond to be on this show. Seeing you at events in 2024, it is amazing to hear the perspective coming from the hospitality side, coming from the journey of data and making that connection with what we do in our business. So when you reached out and said, "Hey, Jason, will you jump on my podcast?" I was like, hell yes, absolutely. Because you put numbers behind the information. It's not just a feel-good thing, which hospitality, it should be feel-good. It should be that true restoring of the body and the mind. But you put data behind those things, and that's what makes people believe and make change. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really important, isn't it, as well, for our people to just, gone are the days I guess of gut instinct and things like that, because pressures from people above, high expectations, unrealistic targets. So I guess when there's that data in there, it just gives them a bit more of a platform to be more confident about what they're thinking or what they might be doing. And also, when people are taking risks, it kind of shows when things are working and failing. I think that's one of the things we might have lost a little bit since probably we were both on the shop floor with guests and working and leading people, is that element of being able to risk and experiment has become maybe a bit too high stakes in a way. I don't know what you think, because you obviously speak to operators every single day with the coaching business.
Yes, definitely. I find that a lot of operators fall into what's most comfortable. And what's most comfortable isn't always where you should be heading with whatever that the fix is, whatever that solution is. We tend to just go to what's comfortable, but that's not always where we need to go, which is, again, why those numbers make sense. The numbers don't tell us everything. We all know this, but it gives us an area to dial into further in order to then explore. And sometimes that area makes us uncomfortable, which is when we tend to say, I don't like this data. I think it's somewhere else. It's because where it's leading you is where you're most uncomfortable. And so that's why, yes, it really boils down to how can we lead our teams to understand the data, where it's taking us, and then what to do with that information in order to make that solution a real solution within your business.
100%. And behind every good piece of data, there's a human who needs to analyze it and execute it as well, isn't it? Which I know you're passionate about. So for Jason, for those people who have been under a rock, don't turn on LinkedIn, don't see how great you are. Share your background, share your story. Tell us what you're up to now and how you're making a change.
Like most of us within this field, I am a restaurant lifer. Started out age of 15, banging out dishes in a mom and pop seafood restaurant in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I've been a restaurant lifer ever since. But the reason why I got into restaurants, just to be 100% honest, is because what most people don't know if they've been under a rock is that when I was young, from when I first started speaking all the way into college, even into my late 20s, I would stutter. And I would stutter at a rate that I couldn't finish a sentence. So even in my younger school days, the middle school, the elementary school, kindergarten, they would pull me out of class to give me breathing lessons so that I could start to understand how to finish a actual sentence. And yes, during that time, I got all the names, all the nicknames that you can call someone so that can impact you greatly. So when I got older, my first job, I wanted to put my head down, wash dishes, facing a corner, because I knew I did not have to speak with anyone. But what I didn't know is that when you start doing something well within our hospitality industry, people then start asking you, hey, can you now do this? Hey, can you now train this person, how you do this so well? Hey, now can you shift from here? Because now we have a hole here. Can you come run this position? Can you come fill this role? Now that you're doing that well, can you lead the shift? So eventually I'm like, okay, this is the opposite of what I was trying to do. I wanted to put my head down, and now I have to speak, do callbacks, ask questions, train people. So I got into Toastmasters. And the reason why I got into Toastmasters is I wanted to figure out how can I say what I want to say in the least amount of words, but be very impactful. That was it. How can I say what I want to say with the least amount of words and it be the most impactful? Because what we do in hospitality, it's like public speaking. We take a short time frame, stand on this soapbox and speak to people and get them motivated to focus on something in order to get the shift going in the direction that we need. We do it multiple times every single day, don't even realize it. So Toastmasters helped me figure out how to do that concisely, how to be precise, how to be impactful. Of course, I've held many roles, from general manager, bar manager, kitchen manager, saute, sous chef, franchise business consultant, managing partner, franchise operations coach. I now have my own business, HospIvation, where I coach, which is different than consulting, but coach, I consult. I am a professional speaker, which is crazy, going from stuttering and couldn't finish a sentence to professional speaking on stage, to then authoring my book, Every Leader Needs Followers. And up to now I do a mix of all of these things for many businesses, from single restaurant owners to hundreds of restaurant brands, families that own hundreds of restaurants, franchise some, have their own corporate locations. But I love doing what I do, just like you love doing what you do. And there's always a story behind how we got here.
100%. And do you know, there's so many things I want to talk about in there. So I've just written them down so I don't forget. But I think the first one there is when you were talking about being clear and concise and what you learned from that Toastmastering, because coming from the situation that you did, obviously to get out and be a Toastmaster in front of all these people, forget the public speaking, this is later in life. Like that's some journey from a commitment and a dedication to do better. If people are listening to this and think, what does he mean by being clear and concise and impactful? Is there some takeaways that you could share with people in terms of being able to do that and think about it? Because it's such a powerful message, I think.
First thing when it comes to being clear, concise, and impactful that I thought through during that time frame, and the why that got me to being better at doing those three things, was understanding who my audience was, not understanding who I wanted them to be, which is different. Who my audience was, who were the exact people that I was speaking to at that moment, because we tend to want to focus on where we want to be as leaders, as business owners, and what we want our team to be like. But I have to first focus on who are the people that are actually right here, right now in front of me as I'm speaking on this topic for a alley rally, for a shift huddle, for giving feedback. Who is this person? And speak to them as they are then. And then get them to figure out where they are. Because whenever we think through orientation first, most of us think about orientation as the first 2 weeks or 4 weeks that we've come on to a new business. You know, understanding where to park, where to hang your jacket, where to put your keys, when to take a break, where to take breaks at, where is your role at. But orientation is helping someone fixate on the right area at the right time to know what direction that you are heading in. We orientate people every single day because they have so many things that are on their mind: business, bills, family, spouse, brother, sister, mom, dad, medical bills, you name it. There's so many things coming into your front door. We have to orient them. So understanding how to be clear, concise on what the goal is for that shift and who they are, that helps to help realign them for you to speak the right words, not what you're hoping for down the road.
I really love that, and I think one of the things that I from listening to you on stage, and I had the pleasure of being able to do it in Texas in real life, is I would use the word impactful in the way that you put things forwards. But what you bring to any conversation is this like real granular knowledge of the way operators think. And when you talk and you make the point, and you've just done it now when you're talking about the pre-shift, actually, you go into a thing that only people who've worked in the industry would kind of go, yeah, that was me, or that is me. I think it when you're talking, and I think, to give the listeners an example of how that impact is there, it's like the point is there, but then it's backed up with just this amazing knowledge of operations or running a business that really helps kind of compound that is that intentional, or is that just your hospitality by nature and in your blood coming out in passion and expertise?
Wow. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I know that I do take time to think through, because we do everything, you and I and everyone listening or viewing this, we do everything we do because of a past history in our mind. There's something that happened to us as children, within our family, at school, with friends, whatever. There's something that drives us to do the things that we do, that we think it just happens, but there's something else there. When we can figure out what that thing is whenever we can start making true change, to how we do. And it's not just on a personal level. So I don't want these listeners thinking that this is just a personal thing. Our personal life and our business life doesn't switch. We think, oh yeah, whenever I'm at work, I do this. And then whenever I'm at home, you're not a robot. You don't have a light switch on your wall that you're like off, on, off, on. No, the same things, the same attributes, the same way that we do, like what you just explained, of that intentionality, of putting the why behind it, of taking the time and truly connecting that piece so that people listening can understand exactly what I'm going after. I still believe it stems back to those names, to those things, to everything that I went through to focus on how to be more impactful. Now it just follows me into regular conversation as I think through those things. And I think that we all do the exact same thing.
For sure, and I'll back that up with an example. Actually, I was in the Nomad Hotel in London with some people might call him my business coach. I call him my challenger because he challenges me all the time, and that to me is more important than being a coach to me. But we were in the Nomad Hotel, and I was explaining to him why I loved the way that the F&B is laid out in this hotel. And I went on to a bit of a tangent, I guess. It wasn't a rant because I love that hotel, but a bit of a tangent around why it was so great and all the rest. And he stopped me and he was like, "Why aren't you putting that on video?" And I said to him, because if you walked me in here now with a camera and said, "Tell me why this hotel is so good," it wouldn't be from the heart. And it wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't be as impactful because that spontaneity and that natural, this is why I think it's so great, just kind of naturally comes out. And it's from years, like you were saying, years of experience of going, this is what bad looks like. This is what great looks like. This is a great example. And let's just get it out on paper. And just to back that up, I totally agree with that. And it kind of brings me on nicely into the consulting v coaching piece. And I'm really passionate about this because I talk about this with our clients quite a bit, in that we do a certain amount of consulting, and to be successful, we do a certain amount of coaching. And that's the bit that I think puts us apart from the rest. So creating a concept for someone is very much a consulting process. Working with the team in that particular venue to deliver that concept is only going to be successful through coaching, not consulting. Can you explain to the listeners the difference between consultants and coaches? Because I think this is a really valuable lesson that we can teach.
Most people do understand what consulting is on the business side of getting a task/project within a certain time frame to help implement that project into someone's business successfully, while walking them through what those watch outs are and helping to truly problem solve with them on that. Coaching is different. Now, first, I'm gonna take it back some more. I teach three things, and it's a part of this logo right here: manage, lead, coach, repeat. First, manage. Manages. We are in a managing mindset for most of our business. Why? Because we are a business first. We're a business first that has great people with great smiles that will greet you warmly, make sure your room is perfect, that it's clean, it's to the T, and then have some amazing food, pour amazing drinks. But we are still a business first. Why? Because we don't do this for free. We do this in order to make a profit, to keep the next day going, and to give opportunities for people that work with us to be able to then do the things that they like to do outside of work as well. But we are a business first, so we manage that business. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that sometimes managers get a bad rap because they weren't developed correctly before they got into the business of managing others. But manage is first because we are a business first. Then there's leading. Leading is looking outside of those four walls, understanding the industry, the challenges that may be coming down the road that others may not see, and then being able to paint that picture so vividly that people choose to stay on board your team. You may not tell them every brushstroke, but they can see the destination because you show them that vision. Coaching is different. Coaching is all about facilitating growth by helping others to find their own answers versus dictating those solutions. It's teaching others how to think on their feet. A few practices when it comes down to coaching is quick feedback loops. Like after a task or a service rush, you are providing that feedback, both positive and constructive, to help them think through what just happened, the different scenarios, and then how they can move forward through that to the next day or the next service rush. Asking open-ended questions. Instead of saying, hey, what you did was wrong, it's how do you think that went? How do you think that went? That makes them think through different things that we may not even realize that they are going to think through to understand what's going on. You don't just want to make a statement. You don't want to ask a yes/no question. But how do you think that went? Or what do you think will happen if this keeps going like this? And opening up their mind to be more nimble without us giving that answer. And then doing regular check-ins. A large part of coaching is the regular check-ins. It can be something as small as pre-shift meetings, or something as large as weekly check-ins with an executive to focus on what went well, what their challenges are, and what they're thinking through, what their mindset is for making success happen. And then teaching problem solving. Coaching really is about teaching problem solving. And all of this matters, from the feedback to the open-ended questions to the check-ins to the problem solving, because it helps build trust and accountability within that individual and their team. And that's what you're really doing. You're coaching them, building that trust and that accountability, and creating that environment for their team to truly excel.
Yeah, fantastic explanation. And I think if for people listening, if you had to look at that and say, okay, if you're in the manager stage or if you're in the leader stage and you want to move to that coaching stage, and I think if I think about the best leaders I had, they were also some of the best coaches that I had as well. How do people, what would be the steps to start looking at how you can start coaching people? I mean, you used a couple of examples there about asking questions, and that's a big part of it, but how do people start?
First, you have to create the space for it, which is, again, it goes back to the beginning of our conversation about uncomfortable.
Yeah.
A lot of managers, leaders, owners find creating space for someone to tell us something is uncomfortable. What's comfortable is that we can send 10,000 emails and texts of where's labor, where's sales, where's this, how are your surveys, why is this going on? We can dump all kind of information on our team all day long. The question is, how many times do we create the space for our team so we can learn about them, what their goals are, what their challenge is, and then how we can get them past that red tape in order to be successful? The uncomfortable is us being silent and creating that 30-minute space that's only about them, not us telling them what's going on, but them telling us how their day is, how their spouse is, how their hobbies is. The first 5-10 minutes, tell me anything you want about anything. And then the next 10 minutes after that is you talking about your business goals, your professional goals, your professional challenges, what's going on. And then we are then helping them think through how to be nimble with those challenges. But all of that space creating, that is what really helps to start that coaching environment. Just not focusing on what we want and focusing on what that player wants, what that team member wants. That's where coaching really, the term coaching The term coaching came from, I forget which country within Europe, but it was simply the carriage taking a person from one location to another. That is coaching. You are creating the environment to help a person get from one location to another. But it's for work. It's for their mentality. It's for their goals, helping them get to that next level. So that is it first. Create the environment for it. Don't always make it about what you need. It's about what they need.
Yeah, that's really important, and I think that's especially true in one-to-ones and making commitment to actually sit with people and keeping those appointments as well, isn't it? And I think a great way I've always found of trying to get conversation going from a personal perspective, you just have to ask people how the families are. It's like the easiest entry level question in that can get people opening up, because 9 times out of 10 people smile and they'll always have something to say about what they did at the weekend and stuff like that. So I think that's a great one. And the analogy on the coach is great as well. And I think if people start looking at sports as an example of where that is, a lot of the big coaches now here in the Premier League, but certainly in NFL and stuff like that, are called coaches, and their job is to spend time with that first team, making them better, working on how to improve them as players so that it helps improve the team. And there's definitely some analogy in that. And that brings me really nicely on to, it was a conversation we were having in Texas with Monty, our friend Monty Silva. And we were talking about how, and I'm sure he will criticize me for saying this, but we were talking about how there's an opportunity for him to do more outside of the industry by using some of the lessons that he's learned inside the industry. And that, I know that's something that you've done. So could you just explain that? Because I spend a lot of time talking to F&B leaders about how they should be looking outside the industry to bring back some of the great things into what we're doing in hotels and food and beverage. But again, how that transcends back out. What are some of those soft skills that other industries can learn from us?
That is a very true statement. Even on my professional speaking side, I've found more non-food and beverage companies reaching out to want me to speak through what I speak to. My book, Every Leader Needs Followers. Of course, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on my website, but it's 10 keys to transform restaurant managers to hospitality leaders. What is crazy about those 10 keys, you can take those 10 keys and you can apply them to any industry, and it falls right in line. For example, although you shouldn't pick your favorite children, I do have my 5 favorite keys. My 5 favorite keys that are in the book are actually the very first 5 in order. And it spells out the acronym MODEL, MODEL. Master your KPIs, M, because again, you are a business first. You have to understand what success looks like. Second, owner-like orientation. Again, it's focusing on orientation isn't just about the first 2 weeks. And how do you bring on your new hires to view the big picture, not just one position? D, delegate by creating mini GMs. In every business, not just food and beverage, we tend to want to do everything ourselves because, one, we have a lack of trust. We don't trust someone else will do the same thing that we do and get the same results. So how do you delegate to create more time in order for you to focus on the right things? Next one, E, engage through one-on-ones. Exactly what you and I just covered on coaching. How do you purposefully create that space? So I call it engage through one-on-ones. But what I'm actually doing is making professionals focus on coaching as a key fundamental. And then the last one, number 5, leading with the right mindset. And that's managing versus leading versus coaching. Understanding the right mindset at the right time to get the best outcome, not just a good one, because the average professional weaves in and out of that managing, leading, and coaching mindset multiple times per day. But are you in the right mindset at the right time to get the best outcome? Everything that I just said, we can take that to tech. We can take it to marketing, to communications, to retail. It doesn't matter. It just so happens that I happen to work in the hospitality industry for 30 plus years. And I teach it through that terminology because I know that audience well, but I can blanket statement all those things and we can apply it to any industry. Last piece. Our industry in food and beverage is one of the rare ones that we can take a 19-year-old, 20-year-old person and teach them how to run $1 million business with less than 10% profits, and then be kicked in the face, screamed at, burnt, shivered, all of that stuff, run around all day and come back the next day to do it again. That is amazing that we can. This isn't tech profits, 70% profit margin, 80. We're talking about 10 to 15%. And we can teach someone that young how to run $1 million business. That's amazing.
It is amazing, isn't it? And I think it absolutely is. And you know, they almost become mini GMs nowadays are almost mini accountants at the same time as well, aren't they? It's fascinating, really. So I want to pick out two of those keys to delve into a bit more. And the first one is the last one, which I think is really interesting, because if you listen to a lot of leadership experts or even coaches to an extent, as you said at the top of the show, this manage bit is a dirty word, and we shouldn't have managers anymore. We should have leaders. What I love about your approach is actually it's okay to manage, because at times you need to manage. You definitely need to lead, because that's critical to the success of leading any team. And then at the right time, we need to develop skills to coach. And then this regular check-in, I think, is something that is completely alien to a lot of us in the industry. But why? You touched on it slightly at the start, but this whole managed thing, I actually feel like a big weight has been taken off my shoulder, because I think there is a place for management, because you have the hospitality, I believe, runs in an element of discipline. There has to be an element of discipline within the operation, especially in higher establishments and things like that in terms of structure. I was in Harrods yesterday. We're doing a project with them, and they were incredibly disciplined. So there has to be an element of that, because that management and leadership, there is a difference, isn't there? Because there has to be a almost a parent-like attitude at times to certain elements of the business.
Yes, I definitely define managing as taking a group of people, keeping them in the guardrails to reach a certain point by a certain time within a certain budget. And again, nothing wrong with managing. We don't need to kill or cancel the word manager or managing. It's needed. It is absolute, because of a business. Even for a nonprofit, you have to manage a nonprofit within certain guardrails by a certain point in order to make sure that even for a nonprofit, you meet the terms needed to open up that next day. It's just that, like we said, managing has a bad rap, because there are people that become managers. They were so good, so amazing at what they did in their current role that they thought that they could just naturally teach others to be as good as they were within that role. But managing others in a fast, stressful environment isn't natural. It is learned. And that is where the challenge is for people shifting into that managing mindset. They have to shift from task-oriented to people-oriented. Most of the most amazing sales people we have, sales reps, catering sales, SaaS sales, it doesn't matter. They are so task-oriented that they can make the President's Sales Club every single year, and they are amazing because they take the emotion out. They focus on the task. Now they have these amazing numbers, these amazing year-over-year sales numbers. And they can say, I'm going to have you run my team. And what you just did was you took the biggest robot and you're now putting them in charge of other people's emotions. Because when you go from an individual contributor to a people manager, you are now managing emotions. It drives them crazy.
Yeah.
They're like, I can't deal with these people. He's so emotional. She's so this. He's so that. I'm just going to fire them all and get my own team. And it's because of the mindset shift from task-oriented to people. And when we can understand how to do that, that's when that first-time manager becomes more successful. That's why you and I enjoy what we do. We enjoy what we do because we help people shift that mindset to be able to have the balance of both once you start leading people.
I was trying to think in my head as you were talking of a way to kind of explain that, and I'm going to fire it at you and see if I get 10 out of 10. I guess for people to take away, the management side of it is almost the structure, isn't it? It's the structure of the game. Like this is the standards. This is what we have to achieve. I guess this is where we need to get to in terms of results. So that's the structure. The leadership is the inspiration, which is the way you inspire people on that structure to achieve the results that you have to achieve as part of that. The coaching for me is almost that bit where it's like the learning and the challenging. I'm not sure which one I would go with. I'm going to let you tell me which you think, but it's almost like that challenging is that, like, why have you done it? And get into the reason why, because sometimes someone might do something with no intention. They've just done it, but actually challenging the why makes them realize that they should be doubling down on it. It's not always a negative. The learning bit, I guess, is a byproduct of that as well. And that's kind of how I was listening to that and trying to formulate in my head how that could apply like into the direct like running of an operation, I guess, and how when you're flipping between the management, leading, and coaching, that's kind of if you need to put the structure into the business, it's back to that management. If you need to inspire people, pre-shift briefings, great example, you flip into the leadership. If something might not go well or something goes really well, how do you take the learnings from it? It's kind of that structure of how you can flip back and forth. Really does make sense when you explain it that way. It's a really cool way of putting it.
It's definitely the mastery of the different tasks. You said it very well. The mastery of the managing is the rules that we have to follow within this industry, within this role, within this brand, in order to get to the next level of success and what success means. What defines success? You hit it head on with the mastery of leadership. Is that vision. It's the power of persuasion. It's the power of how can I affect my people long term, whether I am in the building or not? How can I get them to take that next step without even seeing the floor and trust in me because they know they can see that goal too. But the mastery of coaching is the mastery of small groups and one-on-ones. When you think about managing and leading, it's the mastery of the big picture. The coaching is the true mastery of small groups and one-on-ones. I like to always tell this story. My son, my youngest son, he's 17 now. He's been playing sports since he was 7. And at the age of 7 here in the U.S., you can play AAU basketball. That is a local league basketball. That's just someone's parent teaching you run down the court. They are not going to call travel. Just throw the ball up, smack hands. There is no foul. And hopefully we'll pray and hope that the ball goes in because you are so young. All right. Now, at this point, you are 7 years old getting coached by someone's parent to play AAU. You can keep playing AAU until you get into middle school. In middle school, there's now scholastic basketball. That means that they have a teacher at the school as a part of courses teaching you how to do basketball fundamentals. At this point, you can play both scholastic ball and AAU. If so, Your kid is getting coached for 9 out of 12 months of the year. Then keep this going all the way into high school. In high school, there is a team of coaches teaching you basketball, more advanced skills, more advanced drills, and you can still play AAU even in high school. And if so, your kid is getting coached for 9 out of 12 months of the year. Some of these kids are so well, they take it into college. Now in college, there is no more AAU. Why? Because it is, you are getting trained nearly year round, 5-6 days per week, multiple hours per day. You are on the road, plus getting schooled as well for whatever you are going to college for. And this gets the very few ready for the WNBA or the NBA. Now, some of these players in the NBA, they're getting paid tens of millions of dollars per year. And some of them have been getting coached for 9 out of 12 months of the year since the age of 7. And yet still, there's a person on the sideline yelling at them who to cover, when to press, when to fall back. And at the break of every gameplay, they bring every single person over, even the ones that aren't playing, to go over that next play. And they do all of this for a ball and a hoop. But at work, we feel like, no, I've been doing this job now. I've been doing this role for like the past 4 years. My team's has been together for the last 18 months. I finally got them where they want to be at. Plus, I pay them $15 per hour. They better know what to do. And we feel like we don't need to coach our team, or we don't need to get coached. But yet still, we will have our kids getting coached for 3/4 of the year for nearly their entire life for a ball and a hoop. That is the power of coaching and how we need to shift the understanding, especially in the food and beverage world, with how we do and what we do.
That is a phenomenal explanation of why it's so important. It's that's left me grounded. That was phenomenal. I guess moving on, because we have to, but I'd love to just sit on that for a bit, because that was a phenomenal way of explaining it, and so true, so true. The drop there at the end was fantastic. I guess the other key that I'd love to talk about, which I think is you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about, is the one about delegation. I had a boss once who used to use the term, the graveyard is full of indispensable people, because he used to say that when people move on, like the next person will come along, like the business will keep running, like no one's a hero. And I think so many people try and cling on to being the most indispensable person in the graveyard, and try and keep everything to themselves. But what you're saying there about the delegation, it's so important, isn't it? And that make mini GMs is so key for a lot of reasons now. People want to be challenged more. People don't want to be doing the boring tasks. Being a pot wash or a waiter now, people have got bigger expectations and things. How important is it? And obviously you've put it in the top 5, so I know it must be really important, but how important is it? And how can you give yourself the edge to start being a great delegator?
First thing is to never stop delegating, because our industry, we've seen it shift so dramatically in the past 4 to 5 years within the terms of technology. We have shifted. I remember whenever credit cards first came out in the restaurant business, it would be like, oh, look, I'm not going to take credit cards, because how do I know there's real money on that thing? And how long it took for food and beverage to adapt to credit cards. It was just mind blowing. We had this old way of how we do business in food and beverage, and we stuck to that for so long. And then came credit cards, and then came technology, and then came COVID, which pushed us further into technology. And why I bring that up when it comes to delegation is we will always be implementing new things. We will always be having more things to dive into, having to worry about what the size of a cable is in order to run information from this piece over to this piece to make sure that the KDS screen or whatever is working the right way. And then all the information that comes, we have so many reports on reports on reports that people want to have instant information that they can get to about our business to understand whether we are reaching that point of success. All of that said, we cannot stop delegating because we will continue to get more things. And I think that one of the areas that we tend to lose delegation the most, which needs to be called out, is at the multi-unit manager stage or the multi-unit owner stage. If you think about what made us successful as one of the most important people that's in the graveyard is, we would, though, create systems as a really great general manager of having, I have my checklist general manager, I have my front desk general manager, I have my front of house GM, my back of house GM, my line check GM, my truck order GM. Now, these are the ones that do it well, all right? Not just the ones that tend to try to do everything all themselves. Even the ones that do it well, they will have their mini GMs. But the moment that they become a multi-unit owner or manager, for some reason, if you think about it, for some reason, we leave all that behind. All the clipboards and checklists and many people that we created within a single unit, truly successful unit that you won many awards for. As soon as you get to multi-unit, you're now a cowboy. You're shooting from the hip. You're walking in thinking you are on the phone the whole time, driving to your next location, putting out fires somewhere else. And you pull up, you're still putting out all these fires. And then you walk in and you think that in 15 minutes, you could help at the front desk, jump in the back, help get some stuff out, do a quick order, fix something that happened with payroll, do some high fives, check some numbers, and then leave back out to go piss on another fire elsewhere down the road. And it drives us crazy. And we've lost the delegation, the impact, the power of delegation, even as a multi-unit owner or manager. So first thing is, we can't lose delegation. Delegation follows us and should be following us into every single role we do. We should be finding ways to help automate things and build mini GMs of even our multi-unit operations to ensure success and less stress.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that step up from going from single unit to multi-unit is one of the most difficult steps up that there is on the ladder. I think going sometimes from assistant to GM is pretty hard, especially if you're in a group where you've been a while and there's friends. That multi-unit really does bring a different thing into the whole bit. And we used to. I had to learn that when I was managing multi-unit. I managed multi-country as well. So it was like, how do you do that from afar? How do you do it when you can't go to the stores once a week? How do you put the systems and the principles in place? A lot of it comes back to what you were saying about that leading and coaching. It's the communication and the checking in that becomes even more important. And actually you become less operational, you become less granular, and you have to go more high level, back to that leader coach bit on your wheel there that can help make success. And the only way you're going to do that is by having people who can do it as good as you in those sites, isn't it? It's the way I think about it sometimes is you have your domain experts and you're the generalist. And as long as you can lead those domain experts to do what they do really well, that's the key to success. You don't need to know how to fix the dishwasher anymore or turn the lights on or do the music. And I used an example when I was in multi-site is that I didn't actually know how to use any of the systems that we used. So inventory system, payroll system, I didn't know how to use them. And I used to get, the CEO used to say to me, but why don't you know how to use the systems? You should know how to use the systems. It's your people who are using them. I said, but that's where the beauty comes of not knowing the systems, because I don't know the ways that these guys are getting the numbers. So I challenge the numbers more because I don't know how they're getting them. So I don't work it out in my head how they've got to that figure. I challenge and I ask. So actually, there's more power in the naivety of me not knowing it than there is in the detail of me understanding how they got to it. It's much more effective. And I think this is a great example of how delegation can really make your life easier as a leader, especially in multi-site.
Especially, we trying to shift from a autocratic style of leadership into a laissez-faire style. The laissez-faire style actually it did originate in France in the 1700s, and it actually means allow to do, and it's taking power and putting some power in the hands of key people that are on your team. And especially when you're multi-unit, multi-country, multi-brand, you have to be comfortable with that laissez-faire style to allow certain power to be in the hands of key people while you still doing your role of the follow-up, of the check-ins, of the coaching, because that's the only way in order to truly be successful.
Yeah, 100%. So you're speaking to operators every day through the coaching program. What are some of those challenges that these guys are asking you to help with? And, for some people listening, it might be a sign of we've got your back and we know what you're doing out there. It's because there's lots of challenges that are being faced with minimum wage, cost increases, revenue struggles, people opening locally, taking business. What are you seeing?
You've listed it all, but the key footprint, the key connection that I tend to see is what it all boils down to whenever you truly reduce all of these specific challenges that are going on with all my clients, is that they have less time and they need to build better people. So it really is boiling down to, how do I build back my team so I can build back my time, so I can focus on what's truly important. Everything else is just the little popcorn that's in the air that tends to drive you crazy. But every single point of it is, how do I build back my team so I can get back my time to focus on what's truly important? And wherever you are within that calculation, it's what are the three biggest challenges that you're facing right now? How do we involve your team into those challenges while being clear and concise on what you're trying to come across with? And now, how do we delegate out certain things with the check-in from the coaching in order to build you back more time, in order to now say what is truly important for your business? That is the exact same equation almost every single time, just depending on where you're in within that calculation.
Yeah, that's really cool. I guess as part of all of this, just to kind of add a final element to it, I guess all this bit around swapping from manager to leader to coach to reviewer, looking at how to delegate, all those like 5 keys that you mentioned. Communication is a huge piece of this, isn't it? Like being an effective communicator, being able to deliver what you want to say and how you want to do it is so key to success. As a final thing for people who've listened to this and kind of inspired by what we've said today, what are some of those tips around communication and how to do that effectively to get success in the model of what you're saying?
First thing is clarity, and that's using direct, simple language to convey your expectations, and then being consistent. Being consistent inside your messaging can help avoid miscommunication or causing your teams to focus on little things that's truly not that important or be confused. And then approachability. You have to know how to have that open door feel, or creating that space for them to be able to talk to you about their concerns. That approachability is getting back to building the coaching environment for them to talk to you about what's going on. Now, some of the things we can do besides being clear, besides being consistent and being approachable, creating that space. Practice active listening. Don't just hear. You have to understand and then reflect back and validate what they said. Use multiple channels for how you communicate. And what I mean by that, we tend to have email, we have text message, we have all kind of different tools. Be sure that all of the tools that you're using is still very consistent into how you're saying those things. And then provide feedback regularly, both positive and constructive, both in the moment and scheduled. By always giving feedback and formulating it the right way, you can absolutely help build better communication and then role model that communication. If all you talk about is sales, or all you talk about is labor, or all you talk about is bonus, the only thing your team is going to focus on is that one thing, and how to create that communication systems that engages employees and drive results. Because every single person's role first is get results and then have a wonderful front desk. Get results, serve great food. Get results, pour great drinks. But how do you create that real communication system that engages with your team and drives results? And when leaders communicate well, everything else falls in place.
Fantastic. And before we go, a chance to tell people how they can work with you, or how the process works working with you direct, because I think, you know, there's lots of value you offer people, whether that's on the speaking gig, but more importantly, getting a bit more access to it. Share a bit of the process about when people, some of the clients that you work with, and how they can benefit from your knowledge.
Well, first thing is you can always reach out to me at jasonebrooks.com, jasonebrooks.com. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I think, Scott, as you know, I post nearly every day on LinkedIn. And whether it's fun facts, whether it's giving praise, whether it's reposting someone that's looking for work, I make sure that my communication is also very consistent into how I appear for my peers, for my friends, and for my clients, because I don't want them to only be learning stuff whenever we are in a meeting. I should always be focused on how can I teach what I know to everyone that's willing to listen. And I always have a 15-minute discovery call. We get on a quick call, talk through what's going on, because it is a match. My process of managing, leading, coaching, and then repeat those three, that may not be for everyone. How I focus on the KPIs, on the orientation, on delegating, on leading, on the one-on-ones, it may not be for everyone. So first, we have to be on the same page of what your challenges are, what your goals are, and ultimately what you want for you and your team. And then we can take it from there.
Awesome. Well, if I'm going to put everything down in the show notes of ways to get hold of you, because I think there's some real value there as well. And obviously, as Jason said, very open to coming and doing keynote speaking for groups of people inside and outside the industry. If you're listening to this who isn't involved in hospitality, Jason, thank you very much. I was really looking forward to this chat, and I tell you, we should definitely close this now with, we're both going to be together again at the Bar and Restaurant Expo in Las Vegas on I think it's the 25th to the 27th of March. Tell people a little bit about your keynote, and I'm doing this off the cuff, so if you don't know when it is, that's fine. I can put that in the show notes, but tell people a little bit more about what they can hear.
Actually, my keynote is on Tuesday. I forget the date, but my keynote is on Tuesday. And my keynote is the 5 keys to help build back your team and buy back your time. And it dives deep into that 5 key model, the first 5 keys in the book, Every Leader Needs Followers. And it's great to be able to take those keys and put it within terminology that everyone understands and that they can apply that day in order to make themselves and their business and their team better.
So you've just heard the 5 here. You've had a little taste into what it is. If you're going to be in Las Vegas in the end of March at the Bar and Restaurant Expo, you can deep dive and meet Jason and have a bit more of a chat. Jason, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. And I'm sure people are going to take so much value out of this.
Thank you, Scott. I do appreciate this. And I'm going to see you in Vegas. Let's have some fun. But what's going to happen is going to stay there. All right. We're not going to bring it back on the show and let people know how much fun that we had. You have to show up and be there in order to know what's going on. So don't just wait for us. Meet us in Vegas.
100% meet us in Vegas. What goes to Vegas stays in Vegas. If you want to know more, you have to come out on the party with us. So we'll see you there. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
You've been listening to Hospitality Huddles, brought to you by Auden Hospitality. If you want to see how we can help you think differently for your next F&B project, then learn more by visiting our website at audenhospitality.com. If you want to revisit clips from this or previous episodes, make sure you visit our YouTube channel at Auden Hospitality. Thank you for listening to the show, and see you next time.